Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guests. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Today's guest is a good friend of mine, Chris Adams, CEO of Hero Brands, entrepreneur, someone that gets shit done. I'm already cursing. And always an individual that I can go deep and have intellectual, well-rounded, but thoughtful and practical conversation. So perfect guest for our show, related to brothers. Yeah, a good friend of mine in our podcast, Jeremy Adams, host of Openly Outspoken, who's been a big value in my life for many years. And the first time I met Chris, I think, was at a bachelor party, which is an interesting story. I mean, I think, was that the first time in person? I don't know.
Either that or when you helped, when you came over to Orlando to help Max, Jeremy, and I with Unicorn Innovations or something. You helped us. You were talking about culture and
you were there that day.
Yep.
Now, actually, I have a question. Didn't you had just graduated college with finance background at that time? Is that correct, or was it a bit before that?
That seems to align about that time period. Yeah.
Did you ever think that you'd be the CEO of Hero Brands or anything of that nature while you were studying in college finance? Did you ever think, oh, someday I'm going to be running a company that's kicking ass and taking names? Was that a thought, or?
Yeah, it was always in the back of my head. I wanted to do more, not even in the back of my head, in the forefront, because school's great. And I think there's a lot of awesome takeaways from it. And depending on what you're going for degree wise, some are more applicable than others. And there's like social aspects, and that's all great. It wasn't necessarily a have to have for me. It was a nice to have. I had, unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was young, and she put together like a fund to like pay for college. So, wow. Slightly like, okay, like if she's going to do that for me, like I better step up and go to college. Not that I felt forced to, but I was still kind of figuring stuff out in life. And I was like, I mean, I have a good work ethic. I like to learn. I don't think I'll regret going to college. It's not like I'm giving up an opportunity or giving up on opportunity costs. So it's like, let me figure out what's going on. I was working with Jeremy and doing my own thing and doing some entrepreneurial stuff and also going to college. So it's like, I mean, wow. At the very least, like, let me just take advantage of it. So that's kind of how I looked at it. So I always wanted to do more, and we can dive into some side entrepreneurial stuff that I did as a kid. But yeah, I kind of always had a vision to doing more.
Was that a 529 account?
I honestly don't remember what the account was. I just know the funds were.
It's such a random question. I was trying to open one the other day for my kid.
Yeah.
And then I found out, well, you have to have a kid first.
Yeah, that would be a good tax advantage. Like, hey, I'm just keep deferring. I'm going to have a kid. And then you don't. And you're like, there you go.
So yeah, the first business that you ever started, when was that? You were entrepreneurial young.
Yeah. So, our family, just like even taking a step further back than that, it's probably deep seated in Jeremy and I at some level, although like we've done so much more since. So it's not the only factor I would attribute, but our family started a feed store. My grandpa specifically, he immigrated during like, when all the crazy Hitler stuff was going on. He was in Poland and came with his family, and then started a feed store called Farm City, with one in downtown Orlando and then a second store opening in the Orlando area. So my dad and uncle, that's their only job they've ever had, is like working for the family business. So at a young age, I was, interacting with people, taking orders, seeing that like, okay, you can like come to the country, make something of yourself, or like, you don't have to just work for a corporation. Like you can kind of do your own thing. So I'm sure even subconsciously like that triggered with me, but
wow.
And then beyond that, just, I found a passion for gaming, both because I loved it, and it was something like Jeremy introduced me to, and then I got my own thing. We were half brothers, so we saw each other only during the summer. So I remember he would come over, we'd play video games, and then I was like, oh, that's fun. And then as a way to pass time during, like, not to get super sad about it, but like my mom's chemo and stuff, like I would play games as a kid, and it's just something I was always been super passionate about. And then marrying that with like business opportunity, I was early on like the YouTube game and stuff. So I was like, oh,
really?
Crap, like people are people are like getting a lot of views and making money, like that would be cool. I was like 14 or 15, so I didn't think too much of it, or even 13. I don't know how far back. I didn't
You
really.
didn't play World of Warcraft, did you?
No, I was always into like shooters, or I mean, before like Call of Duty and stuff, I was into other games. But like ever since I got my hands on like Call of Duty shooters, Halo, stuff like that, that's kind of been my passion. Um, Still kind of is. But anyways, I was like, how can I get things going? And I started to, just post content online, and some of it got some traction. But then what really, after like testing things out, seeing what's working, thinking through like, how do I really get a foothold? And like, cool, I'm getting like thousands of views. Like, how do I get tens of or hundreds of thousands? Like, what's a needle mover? And I think about this so much in business now. And it's funny to kind of like think back on it, that like, I didn't attribute it like as like, oh, what lever do I pull, or what's the needle mover action I need to take? But I like kind of took all this information and problem solved. Oh, like the solution, my solution was like, okay, you can post content about video games. Cool. Now you're in a sea of people posting content about video games. So you either need to make like amazing content or have something that like, why do I stand out? Right. And I was just like a little middle schooler or early high school. I'm like, I have a high pitched voice. Who the fuck cares about me? So what I did is I was like, oh, you can get games early, either through like a black market or this thing called, it was like a modded Xbox at the time. So I went on Craigslist and people were modding Xboxes. I went and got a modded Xbox and started getting games early. And there's like a hierarchy of like how to tote the line. Like a big game, like a Call of Duty or something, if you post shit early, I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. Like they have a team dedicated to taking stuff down. If you do like if you do too low end, then like not enough people are going to be searching for it. But if you do middle of the road, they'll let it slide, and there's enough search volume where like I'm going to be first to market with it. So what I did is I got a modded Xbox. Deadpool like 1, the movie was coming out I think a year after the game, but the game came out first, and I was like, oh, there's a huge interest for this. I got the modded game early, and I was like the first to do it. So like, and start posting gameplay of it. So when people search like, oh, Deadpool gameplay on YouTube, I was the first one. Not that the content was groundbreaking, but it has millions of views and accumulated tens of millions of views. And then like, PewDiePie and all these other people started posting videos. And when they searched for like Deadpool gameplay or PewDiePie, like I was even beating him for a while in search. So that's how like, I was
Holy
like, oh,
cow.
and then I started getting checks like early on in high school. We're talking, I mean, at the time, it's like pretty cool to see like, oh, I can create something and get money. And like for a while there, it trailed off because I didn't stick with it. And I didn't realize like, hey, this is a good opportunity to capitalize on. I'm like, oh, life's easy if you can just do this. And then, I realized that it's a little harder than you think. But so like I was getting like thousands and even like 5-figure checks a month for a short period of time. It like quickly died off. But I was like, oh crap, I can do something and make money and just stuff. I had an idea, I implemented it, and I saw the fruits of my labor. Like that's a cool thing.
Wow. What lessons do you think you're drawing on from today, from then, when you were what, 14, 15, 16?
Yeah. Yeah, those are about the right ages. So yeah, I think circling back to, I kind of mentioned this because I figured we might circle back to it. Just, I think some of my core strengths are like problem solving is like a good one. And I don't know the best way to word this, but like just kind of getting my hands dirty, doing stuff, learning like, oh, okay, here's like the levers that really make stuff successful. And how can I integrate with that with what I'm already doing to like either jump to a different sales vertical or whatever the case is in like a business aspect. So that's kind of how I think it translated. Cause like I identified an opportunity. I kind of like mapped backwards and worked like how I could get there and then implemented it and tested it out. Just like a lot of testing, which leads me to a question I have for you, which I might've just kind of answered a little bit, but curious. Cause I know we were messing around on the call prior to this, and I'm a little bit of a ghost online. It's not like I like to scream to the world what I'm doing, and that's okay with me. Might change in the future. I might get more excited about doing stuff like that. Ironically, I just said I had a YouTube channel with like tens of millions of views, and I was like, I don't like posting about myself. But how did you, if I was a ghost online and hard to, I know we've had conversations personally, but how did you come up with that quote?
It's so, I was just thinking about that. My intuition is insane. That's what if I'm being honest with you. I tend to always predict. It happens like all the time with these episodes. The quote always makes sense. So I have no idea. Like I can't speak it. It happens all the time, but no one's ever asked me on the show.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, which, damn, man, obviously we're buddies, but I appreciate the question. Yeah, the way your mind works, it's really magical, I have to say. So that's maybe it's subconsciously, it's because we've spent time together. I think about that, like when I prepare for other people, something pops out to me, like this might speak to
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about. So that would be my answer.
That's cool.
And eerily, yeah, I was thinking the same thing when you were saying, like, where the heck did I get this quote? In 2022, what have been your biggest lessons, of last year, and what have you drawn from them that you would advise people this year how to pull through this year strong?
For sure. And I think it's a great framework to come up with some potentially nuggets that, other people can learn from. I also want to preface it with, I don't think I'm necessarily like a thought leader in certain aspects, so I don't like claim to be the best at anything. For right now, and again, same with like putting myself online a lot or trying to build like a social persona online or whatever. Like, I'm sure as I age, things will change, and as my goals change, like right now I have fairly rudimentary goals of establishing a baseline of wealth to really just propel myself to do whatever I want in life, especially with my mom dying when I'm young, and thinking about, like, we go to this group, Mastermind, if you want to call it, called Comma Club. Jeremy, myself, and Max recently started going, and you sit with a pretty intimate group of people. It's good for that group because it's people that are a lot older than Jeremy and me. And, we're a part of other groups that are same age demographic, or they're in e-com. And it's like, it's good to see different perspectives. They've already made it and they're older, and they have a lot different ways they view things. And same, they, lean on me for some like these new initiatives and things happening online. So it's a really cool group. But we work on business and we work on personal. And a lot of what we work on there is like core values. How does that relate to what you're doing day to day personally in business? And a lot more in depth than that. But from there, I've really established and gotten familiar with like what's important to me and kind of how that ties into what I'm doing day to day. Because like I mentioned earlier, my mom died when I was young. So like I've kind of always understood that, hey, life's precious. You don't know when you're going to die, and it could be controllable or uncontrollable. So I never want to be a part of something that's like, I don't necessarily need to be like super passionate about the topic, but I don't get enjoyment out of doing day to day because I have to wake up and grind and be the CEO of this company and be involved in, or I don't get some tangible value, whether it's monetarily or learning, that I can take to further propel like my future endeavors. So it's a little bit where I'm at right now. It's like, hey, we've identified an opportunity, and I'm like, how can I maximize this to set me up for success and build freedom, both financially and time-wise, so that when I do have a future endeavor in the coming years or whatever, I don't have to like stress about making ends meet, or I can fund that idea, or I've established this initial set of knowledge to use on those endeavors. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it now. So I'm learning a lot. But if I had to point to some learning lessons, I mean, your quote was really good. And for me, in my situation, it doesn't apply to everyone depending on how big your business is or how involved you want to be with certain aspects. But for me, I mean, I really get a lot of value in getting hands-on and at least establishing a framework. So we do a lot of testing with ecom, and we have the ability to, because it's all online, and we can be pretty, first to market on certain things. So I like to test and see what works, and like, how do I double down on that? And then how can I then hopefully remove myself from that equation and bring someone in? Like, I like to like test a lot, see what works, and then double down on what's working. And I know it's pretty broad, but whether it's like marketing channels or new initiatives, like I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on like why things work, or how I can share, or even see if something didn't work, why did it not, and share that with my team so that we can learn. And like, so that's just like a lot of like, for me, it's just been a lot of testing and hands-on stuff. And I've come to a better formula of like how we're going to continue crushing, because our business is tied into politics, and we have a window over the next year and a half, through the end of 2024 during the election cycle, to really capitalize and make a lot of money. So like, the more hands-on I am, I feel the more I can learn for the betterment of myself and the betterment of expediting how fast we're going to grow during this window of opportunity. So it's just, for me, it's been kind of going to, grinding. And funny enough, like, I feel like I'm learning a lot, but, and it's something I wrote down, and we just had Comic Club last week. I don't do a lot of reading. I do sometimes online, or listen to podcasts and stuff, but like I know you do a lot of reading, and I know there's a lot of value there, especially like looking on history and other, there's some core books and stuff that I haven't read that I know I should. But for me, like being hands-on and just, I may be unaware of certain things that are outside of our industry or demo, but I'm getting a pretty good, 0 to 60 lesson in like how to crush with what we're doing.
Wow. How do you stay motivated or work past being like when you're tired or do, and then if that doesn't apply, do you ever find yourself not motivated or maybe you're not tired, or you don't get tired, you're very clear when you want. So how would you go about answering that?
Yeah. So I was going through a period where I was like grinding and spending a lot of hours, and like, I'm sure like, a lot of people that listen might do that or still do that. And then I kind of just thought to myself and circled back to like, what do I want? And is this good? I'm sure there's times where you need to grind. And I'm sure there's times where like I'm being inefficient and should bring in help because I'm putting my hands on something that I probably shouldn't. Or what I truly asked myself, and I think was the biggest like needle mover to finding an answer for myself, was like, well, what do I want? And is me putting in an excess amount of time where it even maybe created stress or these other things, like, is that worth the outcome? And for me, like, I'm not trying to be currently, it may change, but I'm not currently trying to like make $1 trillion or be the Elon Musk and be like, get everyone to Mars or anything like crazy. So since my goals aren't that audacious, I think from all that I've learned through business and the mass amount of opportunities there are in general, I think there are faster ways for me to achieve my goals. And like, I'm just like, and I think about this right now with my day-to-day practical stuff in the business, like what's the fastest way to the money? Okay, we could do a lot of stuff and hire people and spread myself thin. Or what about if we just triple and quadruple down on what's working? Could we get there with like less team and less effort and make the same, if not more amount of money? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like we've established a team of like 15 people, and I've never had I feel like I'm growing really quickly with managing employees and contractors. And I wouldn't say initially when I started this out, that was my strength. I've had some hiccups along the way, but and I don't get excitement waking up and like, I want to manage a team of 100 people. And I know when you scale, you bring in more people to manage those people, and but at some level, you're still kind of responsible. So for me, it's like, okay, I can reach my current goals in life right now, and at least short-term goals, by not working 100 hours a week. So I have, all being said, a long-winded answer to, once I've established that, I'm pretty good about setting, parameters and taking time off, or like, hey, the workday's over unless it's something that really needs immediate attention. Now, does that mean I log off and check out? No, because actually some of my hobbies are gaming, and I game where I work. And it's like, all right, if you physically don't leave the zone that you're working, it's hard to check out. And then I also keep some of the apps like Slack open so that if a team member needs something and it's after hours, like, and if I feel it's important, I'm not going to not respond. So, I mean, I'm still really active, but I'm just like, I know stress is a big thing to contributing, both like short-term, like negative feelings, and also long-term, like detriment to your health. And I just feel like for me, the biggest cause of stress right now is overworking or overthinking things. So the most I can just focus on, how do I get stuff done in a typical 40-hour week, even though I don't necessarily box myself inside that if I don't have to. It forces me to get a lot done in a short amount of time and be able to live a normal life, because again, you don't know when you're going to die. And I want to make sure I maximize the free time I do have. So
What do you ask a lot of questions? Have you always?
I try to be intuitive. I mean, I've grown a lot, and Jeremy, as you mentioned, my brother, who's been on this podcast before and you're close with, just like I'm sure most brothers, they like challenge each other and kind of butt heads sometimes. And since not only are we close as friends and brothers, but we also work together. I mean, one option is to just ignore it. That's not a healthy option. And both Jeremy and I are, I think, I don't know what the right word, like intuitive enough to understand that like that's probably not the right road to go down. So we've challenged each other and really are quick to amend any negative things and quick to make each other grow so that we can work together long term. Because if we don't do that, we understand that like it's gonna fizzle up at some point. So he's forced me to learn a lot because the way my brain works and the way I've communicated in the past has been I'm very analytical and maybe to the point, or, different words that you could describe it. And if you don't know me, that could be interpreted as like negative or other, associations. So Jeremy's really challenged me, and I'm appreciative of him to like getting better all the time. So I try to be intentional about how I word things and how it might be perceived as like one bucket. And then the other bucket is also just to be intuitive, because there's so many things I could learn from so many people. Now there's obviously like a cutoff where like being intentional about who you're asking, or like how much time it takes. Like, is this like going down a rabbit hole and we're talking too many back and forth questions if it's like with employees and stuff. But I don't want to be ignorant to, like, no matter who's on our team, there could be something they're seeing that I'm not privy to because I don't see it day to day. So I don't want to be ignorant to, like, they could have a viewpoint or perspective, or say one triggering keyword that could lead to me thinking through like a new solution for even something unrelated. So it's like, I try to be intuitive where I can. So that's kind of the value I see in it. And I think it feels good for you to not only learn, but like, I think it feels really good for people to share. So like asking questions and like, oh, he cares what I have to say. Like I want to, not that I have this great desire to like, end homelessness or feed the world or anything, but like the few interactions I do have, because I'm like relatively introvert. I mean, I want to have a positive impact and make them feel good. I don't want to ever like be a negative, light on their day. So yeah, I think that all kind of plays into the fact that I like to ask questions.
Do you believe you're a better leader for that? Or what are your views on leadership even? How do you define it? How do you look at it at this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for improvement for me to become a better leader and constantly grow, because I've never done this before. And, whatever my next venture is, if I do need to build a team, I, be better because of it. And even maybe I'll realize I'm not the right fit for that long-term to be like a people leader. But I feel like with the team that we do have, and, I know there are a lot of bigger companies out there. So like, managing 15 people is definitely a reasonable ask. So I feel like with those people, we have a really good culture. We're a little bit of a family. We do like end of year team retreats. And that's how I like it. I mean, I want to make sure they're happy and they're not just like, an employee number or a payroll number to me. Because I think there's a lot of value we get from each other, and I want them to feel valued as well. So yeah, I try to just like, how can we utilize these people to best reach our goal, and making sure that I'm set up for success and the team is set up for success, because they're kind of like, it's like a little army. They're like my little infantry. They're looking for me they're like little infantry, and they're looking for me for guidance. Not that they're not capable humans on their own. And it's more of a collaborative effort of like, how can I use your genius to help us reach our goal and make sure you're happy along the way? So that's kind of how I view it. And it's like a stepping stone of like, oh, when mistakes happen or new people come to the team that have different ways they learn or interact, especially now with us working entirely online and a lot of people shifting towards that, people feel like maybe they need more human interaction or more interaction virtually or less or whatever. So that's like a fine line I'm trying to get a balance of, because it's like, I want to make sure there's as many hours as you can dedicate to the job, but there's also like a thing to be said about culture and learning from one another. So it's a balancing act of like hours dedicated to the job, building culture, and also like continual learning. So definitely an ongoing effort for me to continue to get better. But that's how I see it.
What is Hero Brands for people that don't know? What is what's the actual business? You mentioned e-commerce. Some people listening to this don't even know what that is, believe it or not. They may have a brick and mortar entrepreneurs out there, right?
Yeah. So Hero Brands, our main brand is Proud Patriots, proudpatriots.com. And we have a couple other projects and brands under the Hero Brands umbrella, but Hero Brands targets the same customer. And essentially what we do is we provide various products and subscriptions and offerings to people that are passionate about America, and more specifically like conservative Americans. So like the Trumpinator bobblehead with the tagline, "I'll be back in 2024" is one of our items that are taking off right now. Even before we hopped on, it was like later yesterday or this morning, I forget, but one of our team members shared it with me. Laura Trump shared it on her Instagram. And then even like a month ago, Trump was pictured with one of the bobbleheads on his private plane. So like this thing's doing really well and sales are going well. So it's just like, how can we create offerings? We identified a niche, people that want to be heard, and now we're creating products and services to best like meet, they want to show, they want to voice their opinion and like have stuff to collect and point to that makes them feel heard and valued. So we're trying to best fill that need. And that's going to continue to ramp up over the next year and a half as the election plays out.
Yeah. What do you think what's the significance of symbolism to you? Totally random, philosophical quandary, right? Because you just pointed, when you said that, it made me think of something that like something to stand for someone's thought or opinion, or curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think too much into that, or I guess my brain's just not like connecting the dots here. So I don't have a really good answer for you in terms of like how that relates to our business. It's just more of like, I tie it to like, hey, is this product going to get into the consumer's hands? And when they receive it, are they going to be happy? And all these products were like, some of them are print on demand, but a lot of the ones more recently that are taking off, we're being intentional about dedicating time and money and resources into creating products that are unique to us. And we're creating the product, sourcing a sample, which is like a multi-month process, and then creating a production run, and then ordering and scaling and doing inventory management. It's a whole new thing and a whole new beast, but it all kind of just circles back to, I mean, symbolism's cool, but you can just cut shorter to the chase and like, hey, does this speak to the person that's going to be receiving it? Are they going to be happy when they receive it? And, it's going to be a good quality product that lasts. I mean, that's kind of the boxes I try to check. And then of course, I'm a marketer at heart and manage like all the ads and affiliates and stuff. I have hands-on. I'm not necessarily the one managing everything or working with them directly, but I like to have hands on all that. And I understand like, okay, I check those boxes of creating a good product that the customer might like, but then how are we able to check the boxes of, is this going to be marketable? Like, is it going to be the right price point? Is it going to have like a tagline like, all right, the Trumpinator, I'll be back in 2024. I mean, that's like, you can't really not connect the dots on that. You see it, you get it, you see the title, you see the tagline, you get it. There's not a lot of selling to be done or anything. And then any of the additional efforts we do, whether it's like video ads or anything, is just a compounding effect of making it better. So the less explaining, the better.
Genius.
Yeah. So
it's pretty, I mean,
I didn't say it, Jay, you did, but I try to be humble.
No, let me say, I mean, I'll be back. I mean, psychologically, that's borrowing from all of culture. It's like compressing time and space. So like immediately I know exactly what that's about. And that's so much. I was eating a sandwich before we did this in the hotel, and on the TV, they had all the channels, right? And one was saying this and one was saying that, the news, and it was all about the election and things. And as soon as you say, I'll be back, I thought like, oh, there's so many people that are going to be upset, so many people that are overjoyed. Like that's some marketing, my friend. We try.
And we try to only spend money targeting the people that are not going to be upset so we can have the best conversion rate, of course. But it definitely doesn't. Some of our ad comments, there's definitely a lot of triggered people for sure. And hey, I'm not unknown to that, helping feed the algorithm of it being even more successful. So,
well, can you elaborate on that? What does that mean, feed the algorithm, right? It's almost like we're in a master class for people listening to this, have various things they want to provide to the marketplace, and may not have that genius to think, let me associate this famous movie with this character, with this context of this time, and that may come naturally to you, or you built it up over time. I'm curious all that. So first of all, what do you mean by the algorithm working for one, when it comes to comments? What do you mean around that?
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, historically, Facebook ads, in the very beginning of this business, at least, was a big driver to our revenue. And it still has been a steady one, but we've since diversified through affiliates and other more meaningful traffic platforms that allow us to directly, more effectively get straight to our core customer demo, like, Truth Social, for example, like the platform that Trump runs, social media app. Like we're running ads on there, and we were like the number one media buyers and ad spenders for that because Facebook had a lot of restrictions on around last election and the riots and stuff. They you used to be able to target, hey, people interested in Trump or whatever.
Wow, really?
You can't do that anymore. You can just be like, hey, our Republicans typically are 45 plus. So can I target 45 plus people? It's a lot harder on Facebook to reach your core demo. There's a lot of 45 plus liberals too. So it's like Facebook's a lot less effective in that. But anyways, at a high level, yeah. So if you do run Facebook ads, the comments help spread with organic reach and help feed the algorithm to make sure it's getting seen by more people. But since Facebook is less of a concern now, I mean, it's not like a deep-seated nugget and key to our success is like, hey, how can we get a lot of comments on stuff on our Facebook ads? It's just a fun little like side thing of like, okay, I mean, our product is going to piss people off. So whether they see it and want to buy it or not, they may be at the very least inclined to interact, which only helps. So it's just a positive side effect of being in this niche of like, it's definitely, you don't see toothpaste and you're like, hey, fuck Colgate, I'm going to put this on. You're not inclined enough to put that when you're on your Facebook. You'll just scroll past it. You're like, all right, toothpaste, I have toothpaste. It's not a big deal. But if you're like,
so funny.
Yeah, if you don't like Trump and you see like a bobblehead, you're like, hey, fuck this guy. So if you don't like him.
So what do you say to people that delete comments? Are they making a mistake from the marketing perspective or?
I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable on like the specifics of this. I would say that, I mean, it's obviously good to have, it's good to, I mean, at our scale with how many people are commenting, I'm not going to lie and say that we're actively looking at every single comment right now, but I mean, it's good to be aware of comments because I have definitely seen comments of like an issue that's on the landing page. I'm like, oh, we need to fix that. They're like, hey, like we just launched a new offer a few weeks ago, for example, and we have different stages of quality control and things in place, but I mean, we're a lean team and we get stuff out, we make mistakes just like anyone. So, we had an ad running and they're like, hey, I'm not going to buy it with that. Like the offer was converting well. And I was just like curious what the comments are saying. Cause sometimes I like to see it's indicative of like, we launched a bobblehead and people, I thought it looked a lot like the person. It's not the Trump bobblehead. It's a different one. One we have on DeSantis, which is doing okay, but people love Trump more. And the whole team thought it looked like DeSantis, but a lot of the comments were like, this doesn't look like DeSantis. And side note, I mean, DeSantis looks like a generic white guy, so I don't know how you think he does or doesn't look like DeSantis. So there's not a lot of specific indicators of his face of like, this is DeSantis. So, but anyways, so I looked at comments there and I was like, ooh, if everyone is commenting, this doesn't look like DeSantis, I don't know if this offer is going to do well. And it didn't do as good as Trumpinator. And I was like, well, it's a good indicator. Like, but then also furthermore, my initial topic was that there's an offer we launched and I guess the pricing was accidentally being hidden because of something on the back end, and people were like, I'm not going to buy this without knowing the price. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's on the landing page, idiot. So I clicked through. I didn't actually say that, but that's what I thought. I'm like, what do these guys know? They don't. So I clicked through and there was an issue with the funnel. But anyways, I think there's like, if you're spending money in ads, look at the comments. They might say something that like ways you can improve the offer or an issue with the landing page or just like something they do or don't like. So when you make an ad image or an ad video, you can speak to that or speak against it more. So if people are like, yeah, I love Trump because of X, or this bobblehead's cool because I'm going to put it on my car. It's like, oh, we should make more ads where it's in your car, not on your desk. Or so I think comments are really valuable in that manner. In terms of turning them on and off, I mean, I don't think it really matters too much. The more comments, the better, unless it's like specifically like these people are scams. They don't ship stuff. Not saying that like that's what we do, but like if that was something being said, and hopefully you're not a scammer if you're listening to this, but if you're not, and that person got you confused with someone else, I mean, it's probably not good to have that comment on there. So I'd probably maybe remove that or hide that, but yeah.
What is there a value with the having the, I'm curious, like, do you think it means that something that there's so much energy on that side of the spectrum and it, like that side of the political spectrum and not the other, or is there, and it's just product offerings that you haven't come up with? Or so I'm curious if that.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and we are entrepreneurs at heart. So while we identified this as a good niche, and our team is passionate about this, we when we were first starting up, we were like, I wonder what would happen if we like sold something to the left. So we tried that, not as many products, but we were just like, what'll happen? So we tried it, and it seems like my takeaway from the experience was that people that are on the left aren't as passionate about buying collectibles or spending money on little knickknacks as they are of hating the right. So if it was like, instead of a pro Biden thing, which I think a lot of America, even left, is like, I mean, half the time he's asleep. I don't know if people like don't like him on the left, so they're not going to spend money on him. But what they might spend money on is they really hate Trump. So we haven't done this, but I saw there's some people out there doing like anti-Trump stuff, and some of that does well. So I just think generally speaking, the left isn't going to spend as much money. So like long ago we stopped that, but
Wow, so fascinating. I'm curious what your advice would be to an business owner listening to this that's skeptical about creating product offerings online. That may think, well, that sounds great for him, but our business doesn't. Is that something that they should explore, or is it not? Because it depends on.
yeah, no, it's a good question. And, I've had various people I've seen try to start stuff, not a ton, but I think I can take some like lessons learned and maybe provide some that's helped curate my thoughts on this. Where I think seeing a lot of people on social media with all their quote unquote success they've had, whether it's true or not, is, take it with a grain of salt, which I know a lot of people say, but it's also, it can be easy. You can strike gold, and I'll kind of touch on that in a second, but it's also very complex and hard. And you really have to spend a lot of time testing a lot of stuff, understanding, depending on what the offer is, if it's like physical products or, there's a lot of variables. So it's not like there's not one answer for everyone, but it definitely can be super challenging to get it done right and make a lot of money and scale. Or you'll see a little bit of success and say, oh, is this like a winner? And then it's hard to scale. So there's a lot of potential roadblocks. And if you don't know it, I mean, there's different ways to go about it. You could learn it yourself. You could hire people, you could hire an agency. And even then, because we had and still do have Unicorn Innovations, the consulting business and performance marketing. So we worked with a lot of clients. And from those lessons, I learned like, okay, we can, our expertise, we could add fuel to a fire, but we can't like fix your business for you. So sometimes people would bring us some really killer offers and we could grow it and make everyone happy and a lot of money. And then, we keep them as a client long-term and we go our separate ways for whatever reason. Sometimes we get clients, even though we try to weed them out, where it's kind of an offer thing. And then they're like, hey, the ads aren't working or this or that. And it's like, can you fix our funnel? Can you help us fix the product? Can you our employees not making can you do that? It's like, so you want us to fix your whole business? Is that what you like? So,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of things that could go wrong. So there's a lot to consider, and it's definitely, it can be complex. Can it be easy too? Yeah, there's some shortcuts to certain levels of success. Like for example, our Trumpinator bobblehead, if hypothetically speaking, you were to come up with that idea, create it, source it, and your first product you ever came up with was a winner, and you put it on Amazon and that Amazon listing took off, you can make some money. Of course it's possible, but you know how many different items we had to test to make sure they were winners, or test various different ads on various platforms and understand why that didn't work, or what the price point is that works, and various different things that led us to the conclusion that this is the home run offer. So, and there's even more variables in that. So it definitely can be hard. It can be easy. And it really just depends if you have a physical, digital offer. There's just different nuances with each. And digital offers are hard too, because you can't really sell. It's easy to communicate, hey, look, do you like this physical thing? Hey, if you pay this dollar amount, we'll send it to you. And then you'll have it and you'll be happy. Or you whatever you sold in your mind that you like this product and you're willing to bring out your wallet, you're going to have it in a week or whatever. Digital is a little hard because you got to sell them on yourself or the content or whatever. And then does your funnel work properly? How many touch points do you need to if it's a high ticket product, hey, I want to work with Jay Doran and it's going to cost me, let's just say it's $100,000 or something to have a month of coaching or, whatever. Okay, you have to figure out how do you talk to the person that would even fit that bubble, that market. And then how do you convince them? And then it's can you do that online? If so, is that more an in-person thing, or how can you even, if it's an in-person thing, can you replicate that online? It's so many things to figure out that it can be very difficult. And just seeing someone have success and saying, hey, they're having success. I'm really good at X. What if I put it up?
You think that the majority of that equation is less than, I'm just randomly, it's just a thought experiment.
Yeah.
Less than 5% of that would be utilized for let's say product or service offerings that are, how do I say this? Like, niche A, B, or C, but 95% is more transmuting the idea, the inspiration, the basis of education of how to start doing the funnels to people that are interested in that. So it's like 95% of the marketplace economy of the online marketing type is really just transferring that education, that basis, inspiration, baseline education. 5% is going to work in a form outside of it, so like, meaning the customers would be the people wanting to learn how to do it. So they're paying money to someone that's teaching them how to do it. And that's 95% of the market. Then there's 5% of the market that's product, services, example, like hero brands, or like somebody that has a high ticket that figures it out over many years how to build their online business. I'm curious what you think of that, just having so much experience, hands-on, because I've been thinking about that, trying to piecemeal together the culture for a couple of years now. And then I'll elaborate a little bit more what I mean, but I'm curious your initial thoughts. Maybe I would definitely want to be clear. I don't know how clear this question is. So
yeah, I was about to ask you to reiterate. So what's the specific question? I just want to make sure I understand.
Let me give you an example. So, one of my close friends wanted me to, use an online funnel for CM at one point, right?
Yep.
But it wasn't something that was in my heart. Someone asked me yesterday, Jay, how do you make decisions? I was like, I make all my decisions emotionally. So what was in my heart was the in-person, and so all of the relationships that we built have been in person, and the work we do is in person. But in theory, we could have done a lot of things through online virtual training or online and so on and so forth. So so Culture Matters is more of a brick and mortar firm in the sense that we're physically with people in their places. So in that case, if I were to have invested in that, then I would have my money, I would have been the product of that person that teaching me how to do it, but I would have not done it. So that person transferring that information to me of the idea of that proposition or that process of selling the intellectual property that our firm offers, they would have revenue. I would just I would not, because I wouldn't be offering my product through that process. I'd be doing what I'm doing now, what we have been doing without the funnel.
Yeah.
So the economic exchange there would be that the money transferred would be, they know how to do it. Maybe I said, oh, I'm interested in learning. Here's my money. I now know how to do it, but I'm not doing it. I'm just doing what I'm doing, which is what we do, right? There's no online. So in that case, that's the exchange. The product is education without action, but it's education. Now, maybe you did it with them, and then now you know what to do, and now you now have a whole company of products that millions of people buy because you paid them too for the education, and now you're using the online medium as a marketplace for selling those products. Whereas I have the education too, but I'm not using the online medium for the sale of the products.
Yeah. I
just have the education. That person made money from me and you. I make up 95% of their revenue. You make up 5% of their revenue. I'm curious if what you think of that, or I could have this completely ass backwards, but it's something that I've been thinking about for some time, and now I'm just bringing it up. What do you think?
So I heard what you said. I just want to triple check that I'm understanding it correctly. So you just want my feedback on hey, you potentially learned and didn't implement the thing, or the 95 to 5% part of it? Which one?
Yeah, 95% represents me, right?
Yeah,
Person A helped person B and person C. I'm person B, you're person C. Person A
gotcha.
had the knowledge. We both paid them. B
Yep,
and C paid them. I paid them and didn't use the knowledge. So I'm B. C paid them. You did use the knowledge to present products offerings to the marketplace.
gotcha. Okay.
They
Yep,
made money from B and C. I think B, this is my theory.
yeah,
I'm B. I paid and didn't use it. I represent 95% of the
I see.
economy. You represent 5% of the economy. That's my theory.
Ah,
And the percentages could be, it could be, I'm the 99%, you're the 1%, or it could be, I don't think it's 80-20. I think it's, if anything, 85-15 or 90-10 or 95. But that's my theory.
yeah, I guess so. I understand now. So if it's about a business having an offering and like people taking action, I mean, I guess it ultimately ties back to what the goals are. So if you have a business and you make money and maybe you say just to help sell people, like, I want to make sure you're successful, but like, you're like, no, I just want to get $10 million in revenue a year. I honestly don't care. There's nothing on the back end to help me make more money if they're successful. And I honestly am maybe a shitty person and I don't care. I don't even care if they're successful. Then I guess like, it doesn't matter. Right. But if you either make more money or you feel better about yourself and want to help the world by having them implement and improving their life or getting out of debt or whatever the product offering is, then yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. There's a lot of people that do take the learnings and don't implement. Um, and there could be multiple reasons why they could have gotten in and they weren't even a fit. Like the information wasn't going to be, even now that they know it, like, okay, like maybe you're comfortable with the in-person stuff and you don't ever want to be like an online presence or like have like a, and if that's the case, then like, cool, now you learned and you have a skill. And if you ever want to tap into it in the future, cool. But is that a reflection on them for having bad content? No, maybe they could improve. I mean, they also made money off of it. So like, and there's no hard feelings on your end. So maybe it's not even a bad thing. Or, I mean, if they care about it and they just want to have a higher success rate of implementation,
I
then they
want to
can,
be clear. I'm not making a moral claim on the intermediary, but
yeah,
I am asking you if you think that I'm onto something as far as theoretically, like, is the culture made up of a majority of education and a minority of implementation? Not because it's a conspiracy against the teachers, right? That'd be like going and
yeah,
saying everybody that goes to college has just been sold a bag. Oh wait, people do say that. I don't think that though. Like, right, the student uses the degree or they don't.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I just want to, I want to be clear that I'm not coming across like I'm making a moral claim of the intentions of the teacher.
for sure.
I'm what I'm saying is I'm making a conjecture that I think the majority of the space is education. Like there's this
Gotcha.
transference of information, like energy. Right? Like the person that tried to help me with it
Yeah, yeah.
still want me to do that. I didn't want to do it.
I
They
see what
can
you're saying
want, right?
now.
They can
Like,
want me. They'll
yeah,
be like, if I'm a sinner and the priest is like, you got to stop. You got to go. You go to heaven.
yeah,
You got to go to heaven. You're going to go to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I'm still going to sin.
No, I agree. Yeah, at a high level, that's completely true. I think there's a lot more information givers than there are people that implement, and there's probably a factor of like people that are really good at doing this online training or whatever thing, and especially the people that are in the unique situation where there's like, and weird overlap is like people that don't have a past of like creating a business or anything, and their first business is like teaching people how to get better at business, and it's like, well, wait, what? So if you don't and maybe their formula is like, yeah, you teach people how to get better at business, so there's like this ongoing never ending loop of they don't actually have the experience in business but teach people how to get better at business. So I'm sure it's like there's some connection to that where like information overload, seeing all these people and the algorithm, like we were talking earlier, you start interacting with something and like, oh, that's a positive thing, or these people, and now you just get this feed of like, not that Gary Vee's a bad person, but the Gary Vee type of content. And you're like, oh, all these people are adding value to other people's lives and making a lot of money. Like maybe that's my solution to being
That's a
successful.
great thought.
Yeah.
That's a
And now
great
there's
thought.
just too many people. There's like more information than there are people who can actually like implement the information. It's like this weird loop.
Well, that's why I had to have you on, my friend.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I
Because I
try to
know
give,
you guys are making things happen every day.
yeah.
before we end, I want to actually go back to the beginning. How old was your father's father when he started the feed business?
That's a good question. I don't have the exact answer. I know Jeremy and I, not necessarily a funny story, but interesting. Now we don't know if any of this is legit. No, but we went to, was it Ellis Island, where you can see the log of the people that immigrated. And I guess they once they immigrated, they changed their name to a more American one. But we reached out to our dad and like got the official name. It escapes me, but some Polish name. And we couldn't find a record. So I'm just saying, did it happen? No. We were like, we couldn't find a record. We're like, they don't lose records here. No. The question, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he's my grandpa and is around like when the Hitler stuff was going on, I'd have to do some backwards math. I don't
Well, I'd
know.
love to know next time you come on. And the reason is, I wonder if he was about the age that you guys are now. Just to be kind of
Full
inspiring
circle,
to
huh?
think about that. Was he fleeing from the Germans? Were they killing all of it? Like, maybe that's a bit aggressive, but like Jenna, my fiance's, did they, no, it was her mother. They came before. Her parents came from Eastern. Her parents came from Eastern, I'm sorry, Western Russia, Eastern Germany type deal. Before the Holocaust. Was he fleeing as a kid?
Yeah. I'm not a history buff. I obviously am aware of the Holocaust. And he's like the grandpa that we're the least close with, I guess, due to his maybe upbringing. There's probably some deep seated stuff there. He's a pretty closed off person. So we don't have an amazing relationship with him. So I haven't asked like a whole bunch of specific
Oh, he's
questions.
still with us.
He is actually, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not a gene expert, but both my grandparents, all of my grandparents and my male ones included, are old and healthy. So I'm just saying, I'm going to be a centennial or whatever.
In closing, I guess my question for the audience's sake here, after having to put up with me for the last 10 minutes on this question, what would be your advice for 2023 and how to close the year strong? Because there's a lot of the themes have been, uncertainty in the economy and so on and so forth. How are you addressing this time, and how are you staying focused and centered on your goals?
Yeah, it's a great question, and appreciate anyone still listening. You might have seen through the course of our conversation, my brain and my communication style, sometimes I get long-winded or my brain like navigates down these holes. So if you stuck with us so far, then that's awesome. But the way I'm navigating it, I mean, I don't claim to be an expert or have like a larger meaning to all of this or anything like that. So I'm just worried about, there's a lot of things out of my control. I mean, we're in the political space. Politics is an example. Like, cool, we can stress out or talk, and it's good to have an opinion and exercise our First Amendment right. But at the end of the day, I mean, cool, you can protest and do some stuff, but at the end of the day, what outside of my like voting power is like a one-off presidential vote or these other votes, that happen on local elections, I can't truly make an impact as an individual. I'm not in the Senate or anything. So I feel like, and you don't know how, like, again, how long you're going to live. My core values is like have build freedom, have a healthy life. And I just don't think I want to stress over the things that I can't control. So when we're talking about economic constraints and all these things that could happen, I mean, could I control it? No. It's obviously good to be aware of and like how that might affect my business. But fortunately, since we're in the political space and that's just heating up over the next year and a half, that's not going to go anywhere. And unless like a crazy COVID thing happens, like our supply chain is going to be fine. So as long as much as it pertains to what we're doing in our business, there's not going to be much changed. And I'm just trying to be the best I can as a CEO and leader to our team, make sure we hit our goals and are successful, and make sure that I hit my goals. So anything outside of that is cool if I have free time to think about it, but it's not really it's not something I tend to invest a lot of time into thinking, because what am I going to control?